God's righteousness changes everything. I want to show you how God's righteousness changes everything. And of course, I know everybody is not going to catch this, but I want to show you. When you get out of man's righteousness and into God's righteousness, it will change your life forever. One reason we should know that man's righteousness and God's righteousness is two different things is because when you make a mistake in your life, or you fall to a sin, or you get caught up in some mess, man's righteousness says you should be punished, you should be dealt with, you can't be trusted. That's all man's righteousness. God's righteousness says you messed up, but get up and let's keep moving. That's God's righteousness. God's righteousness is believing. So no matter what goes on, just believe. No matter what happens, no matter how you fail, no matter what takes place in life, if you are in God's righteousness, you will just believe. God's righteousness is faith. If you are in God's righteousness, then you have faith. If you read Romans 3:22, it tells you that. Righteousness is faith. Righteousness is believing. Just like Genesis 15:6. He believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. So according to God's righteousness, you believe and you have faith. And if that's the case, Matthew 17:20 lets us know that we should speak to mountains and mountains should move. Speak to problems, speak to situations, speak to circumstances. They should change. And mountains move for people who are in God's righteousness, meaning they believe and they have faith and they speak according to Matthew 17:20. They speak and things happen. If you read Philippians chapter 3 and start at verse 8, you will see where Paul didn't want to be a part of his own righteousness, but he said he wanted to be a part of the faith or the righteousness which was of faith in Christ, or the righteousness which was of God in faith. All about God's righteousness. So we have to know that it's all about God's righteousness. If you read John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus said the reason he came was that we might have life more abundantly. He came so we wouldn't live average lives. He wanted us in God's righteousness. That abundant life is a life that's more than enough. This is why Christ came. This is why Christ died. So that we could have lives based on God's righteousness, which is believing, having faith, speaking things, And because of that life, it would be more abundant than an average life. It would be lives that make things happen. This is what the word is for. This is what our believing the word is for. So if you go to Philippians chapter 1, and I think like verse 21, you will see that Paul and Timothy said that to live is Christ. Not just existing, but they said to live is Christ. That's why faith, believing, making things happen because of what comes out of your mouth, that's what the word is all about. That's what God's righteousness is all about. That's what our lives are all about. There was even a time when I believe it was Jesus, when he was explaining to his disciples that it's not what goes in a man that defiles the man, but it's what comes out of a man that defiles a man. Why is that? It's because the life and the death that's in our tongue is what controls our life. When are we going to catch this? I'm talking about God's righteousness. God's righteousness changes everything. What you believe changes everything. What you have faith in changes everything. The way you talk changes everything. That's the reason, according to Mark 11 and 22, everything that a believer says comes to pass. You know why? Because that's God's righteousness. That's what life is all about. So forget man's righteousness. Get in that word and learn what I'm trying to tell you. Learn what God's righteousness really is. Live according to God's design. Live according to God's system. Live your life according to faith, and everything is going to change. I promise you that. Situations that you're going through will change. Financial situations will change. Situations in your body, health issues will change. Dealing with people who are basically your enemies will change. The way you handle problems will change. God's righteousness changes everything. You know, when you hear people saying, like certain people, certain pastors or teachers or people that's strong in the faith, you hear them sometimes say things like, we shouldn't be worried about things and we shouldn't stress over situations and we should take everything to God. This is what they're trying to tell you. I know some of them don't break it down worth nothing, but this is actually what they're trying to tell you. You know why certain people don't worry about stuff? Because they already know what they're going to do concerning a situation. You know why I'm not worried about issues in my body? I already know that I'm going to put God's righteousness to work and everything is going to change. You know, when I'm going through certain issues in finances, you know why I don't worry about that? Because I already know I'm going to put God's righteousness into action and the situation is going to change. You know why I don't stress out about people no more? Because I already know I'm going to put God's righteousness into action and the situation is going to change. You know why I left my job a while back and started my own business? Because I already know the business going to have to blow up because I'm going to put God's righteousness into action. You know why I don't worry when certain things happen in my family? Because I already know I'm going to put God's righteousness into action and every situation is going to change. God's righteousness changes everything. But don't forget, few there be that find it.